Happy weekend, Shabbat Shalom. And a big event has befallen us here in Israel. We were woken up at around 3:30 a.m. by the alarm system over here to get people prepared for a possible retaliatory strike from Iran after the big Israeli operation inside Iran, which occurred today, striking around 100 military sites, taking out some of the top commanders of the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guards, and the military, and strikes also the most important one, the one that we don't know all the information about, which was the nuclear facilities in Natanz. That's what I'm most interested in, really, to know how much the nuclear capabilities of Iran were damaged in the strike, because that's really the main thing that Israel wants. Of course, Iran, through its proxies, Hezbollah and Hamas, have been attacking Israel for decades. Iran, for the first time, directly attacked Israel last year. This was in the aftermath of the October 7th attacks, which occurred. So this is the response that Israel promised many, many months ago and delivered. Now the question is, what's going to happen next? Is this going to escalate into some type of all-out war? I think not. But how will Iran respond? I think they're kind of biding their time here to understand what they can do and not do. We heard the Iranians saying that they're blaming the US for this attack, for its tacit support of Israel, even though, as far as we know, Iran didn't, rather the US didn't take any direct part in this strike, which was something that very often was talked about, that Israel would need some type of US logistical support to attack Iran so far away. One very interesting thing that we know is that Israel had agents inside Iran that used various drones to take out some of those anti-aircraft installations that the Iranians had in order to pull off this attack. In any case, it's very, very impressive what Israel did, at least from a military standpoint, that they were able to take out some of these top commanders that Iran has. Just some names here. Again, we have Mohammad Hossein Bagheri, who was the general staff of Iran's armed forces, chief of the general staff of Iran's armed forces, and then the head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps, Hossein Salami. So this is kind of reminiscent of what happened with Hezbollah, if you remember, where Israel was just able, with the Beeper operation, to take out a bunch of important people, and then also in that strike in Beirut, where they took out Hassan Nasrallah and others, just being able to directly target the head, so to speak. Someone says here, with the name, well, we're answering the questions here that are going to come in, hopefully. With the way things are going, you might do an Iran trip soon and visit us. Well, hopefully. Are you from Iran? Man with no name wrote that. Because in the end of the day, the only real way to actually stop Iran's nuclear program is for the downfall of the Iranian Islamic Republic. Yes, he says. Okay, so what do you think? What do you think about this attack by Israel? How much support does it have inside Iran? Obviously, there's a ton of opposition inside Iran by the population against the Islamic Republic. Do you think people there are in some way happy that this happened? Even if, of course, there's damages and so forth, and a massive disruption inside Iran after this attack. But I've met many Iranians who want Israel to attack the Islamic Republic in various ways to help bring it down. AJ Ribas instead says, bro, Netanyahu is out of control. This isn't about Netanyahu, though. Netanyahu was just the executor of the attack. You know, it could have been any other Israeli prime minister. In the end of the day, this is kind of something that's been in the work for years. The Israeli officials also said that this was an attack that was planned years in advance. I'm still interested how the fighter jets were even able to make their way all the way to Iran. I mean, it was talked about that they needed some type of refueling vessel, right, to make it all the way there from Israel. We know that they crossed over Iraq, that they saw the fighter jets there at around 3-something a.m., just before the strike. So yeah, I'm interested in logistics of how this was pulled off. One of the interesting logistical details, though, that we're having now, we actually have images on the Israeli news showing basically soldiers on the ground inside Iran, Israeli agents or Mossad or the secret special forces or whatever it is that helped to take out those anti-aircraft installations that the Iranians have. Pretty crazy. Momentous moment. Now the question is how the Iranians will respond. I mean, there's going to be some type of push for de-escalation. I think Netanyahu needs a vacation. Someone says, AJ Rebus here. No, I agree. I would like to see Netanyahu go on vacation, but that's just not the situation right now. But regardless, with or without Netanyahu, the conflict between Israel and Iran is going to continue regardless of Netanyahu. Is Israel strikes Iran, is a full war next? Is that a rhetorical question? I'm afraid by any common sense observation, war has already started. Yeah, that's true. Says Elis Nicolau, perhaps from Greece. Look, here's the thing. Basically, Israel and Iran have been in a conflict now for 40 plus years, since the Islamic Revolution of 79. Before that, there was no conflict between Israel and Iran. As soon as the Islamic Republic took over with a fundamentalist ideology, they basically labeled Israel as an enemy and targeted Israel for destruction. Since then, they've been arming their proxies, Hezbollah and Hamas primarily, but also Houthis, also through militias in Syria and so forth, in Iraq as well, that were firing rockets at Israel after post-October 7th. So there was a war through proxies, right? And for a long time, there was talk inside Israel that Israel needs to target Iran directly, because basically the game that Iran was playing was, okay, Hezbollah can attack Israel, Hamas can attack Israel, other proxies, Houthis can attack Israel, and Iran is like not responsible because they're doing it through the proxy system. So for many years, people said that Israel needs to actually try to target Iran directly in response and not just hit Hezbollah or Hamas or other said proxies. Of course, this whole game changed when Iran actually directly struck Israel back in April of last year. So that was another step in the direction of actually having this direct war. And that's why I said, is war next? Is it going to be a direct war where Israel strikes Iran as it struck, and now Iran sends its missiles at Israel, and we have like this direct confrontation between the countries over this vast space, geographic space. The unpiloted drones are on their way to Israel right now. They take many hours to arrive here. They're like on their way now, we've been told. So we're gonna brace for impact in a couple hours. They're gonna be shot down on the way. Not necessarily by Israel, but even by the countries that are on the way, like Jordan, that's Saudi Arabia, shot down some of those missiles last time they tried. Enrichment, says Giuseppe Civetella. What do you mean by ripship? Enrichment. That's a question, right? Netanyahu claimed now after the strike that Iran has enough uranium enriched for like 9 nuclear bombs or something like that. And I think those enrichment sites are spread out across several areas inside Iran. So what exactly did Israel strike in the nuclear program? They struck Natanz. Did they just strike uranium enrichment, or the actual site where they're trying to put the bomb together? You know, I expressed doubt. I was talking about this with my dad here because I'm at my parents' place. I expressed doubt about Israel's ability to actually take out the nuclear program. You know, they have tons of facilities underground. It's spread out across a lot of places in Iran. So how much of the nuclear capabilities were actually hit, I think, is the crucial question here, rather than top military personnel, top scientists, and so forth. And can the Iranians basically quickly recover and get back to the level that they were recently with the nuclear program? The only way to really take out the nuclear program is to actually bring down the Islamic Republic. And I'm not sure that this operation does this. But you never know. I mean, Assad family was in Syria for 50 years, and then in a week they were gone. Something like that could maybe happen with the Islamic Republic of Iran, with the huge opposition they have internally and with the crumbling of proxies abroad. But I have my doubts. So the question is, what exactly is this going to spark? Is this going to make Iran just race faster now to the bomb, to the nuclear bomb, and get there? Or are they going to back off because of, threats from Israel or the US? Like, what's the international response is going to be? It's a question. All right, Top Gear Trend says, this is just a start because Mossad was all over the place. Iran could not attack Israel state, so now they try to prepare for attack. Who? Iran tries to prepare for attack, or Israel? If you can clarify your question. For sure, Iran is going to want to respond in some way or another. The question is how. Yeah? Elis Kalanicolau, thanks for the explanation. Yeah, I mean, that's the question that, like you said, we've been in war not just since October 7th, when Hezbollah started or 8th, on October 8th, one day of October 7th, Hezbollah started raining rockets down on Israel. But before that, of course, Israel and Hezbollah were in a type of war. Hamas, of course, and Israel in a war, and also the Houthis and also other forces. So there was a war. The question is if you have this full-blown direct confrontation. It's a little bit reminiscent of the Cold War, if you guys remember. There was never a direct confrontation between the Soviet Union and the US, but there were a lot of proxy conflicts that were going on, like the Vietnam War, things that were going on in South America, where the US tried to do these coups to take out these socialist leaders and replace them with pro-American leadership. And not like all over the world, you had proxy wars that were going on. The Korean War was a proxy war. So we have proxy wars. But the question is if it will go to a direct confrontation between Israel and Iran, like a full-blown direct confrontation. I'm very interested to see what the international forces will do. Like the international players here, how much they're going to try to de-escalate it like they did back when Iran attacked back in April. They were begging Israel not to go into a full-blown war with Iran in response. And Israel did like a little strike and kind of both sides backed off. But Israel said back then that this isn't the end of it. And today we see that that was true. Someone here says, Tommy Robinson, freedom for Iranians. Okay. Are you in Israel now? MT says, yes, I am in Israel. Top Gear, Iran, of course, want to attack, but they are in shock. What happened to them? Israel shot all their air defense, so that's why Israel continued to strike them freely. Well, it's true that after the surprise attack happened, Israel struck again now in Tabriz, which is pretty crazy to think that, the country is in high alert after an attack that happened in the middle of the night, and still Israel was able to attack again after that, which shows what is the level of the Iranian defenses at the moment. TP Linton, how do ordinary people in Israel feel right now? I don't know. I haven't talked to all the ordinary people. I saw some news reports, some social media and whatnot. I think, first of all, people are concerned about what the response might look like. There's been orders from the home command to stay near sort of shelters. That was earlier in the day. Then they said, it's okay, you can't walk around. They canceled school. So there's kind of like this preparation for a retaliation, and everyone is, let's say, on edge, concerned about what will happen next after this happened, But on the other hand, I think a lot of people are supportive because they know that Iran is chasing the nuclear weapon and they're very close, and that they have a ring of proxies around us. So that it might have been good to attack Iran. I don't know. I'm sure there's going to be a poll that's going to come out in the news bulletin this evening, and then I'll know more of what people actually think about it. Sean Lloyd says, it isn't Israel attacking Iran, it's America attacking Iran. That's how China sees it. Yeah, but it was Israel. Israel carried out the attack, not the United States, and that's an important thing to note. Has Iran now the right to defend itself? Yeah. They have the right. I mean, the thing about every country has the right to do what they want, right? In a sense. Iran has the right to openly declare that they have a goal, which is to annihilate the state of Israel, and then ring Israel with a bunch of proxies like Hezbollah and Hamas and arm them to the teeth and fire missiles at Israel back last year. They have the right to do all that, and Israel has the right to respond, as it did, But let's not act as if Iran is this innocent country that wasn't doing anything before. They've been attacking Israel directly and through proxies now for years. Okay, this is a very interesting question by One Strong. How does last night's actions impact the situation with returning the last hostages from Hamas? Does this help or hurt those last surviving hostages? That's a very interesting question. And I don't know if I have the answer, right? I don't know. I don't know how this impacts Hamas. It could impact in two ways, which one is that the situations kind of become linked because Iran is a patron of Hamas. The other situation could be that Iran sort of is isolated to a certain extent, and then by continuation, Hamas feels like the noose around their neck tightens, and then they, I don't know, have to go to some form of surrender, or maybe they just do a harakiri and they execute the hostages or something like that, which would be terrible, of course. But there's different ways that this can go. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to see, as like a very important here will be the international response sort of to things, and how the proxies act, right? Like what will happen to the Iranian proxies? What will happen to Hezbollah? What will happen to others? So we're gonna have to wait and see on that. But that's a very interesting question that we'll get more answers in the coming days as we kind of see where the winds are blowing. Did all of Israel got the alert message on their phone? Yeah, I got like this emergency alert on my phone. We all got it. Obviously, the state has the the numbers database and it sends the messages. IMAX says, "Hi Halleck, my heart is with you guys. Love from Morocco." Thank you very much. Jock UK says, "Hello from Oxford, England. I wear my IDF t-shirt wherever I can go over here." I'm glad you're still able to do that safely because the images I see coming out of Britain are not very encouraging. Jay says, "May the Lord Jesus Christ help Israel." All right. Well, you know what? We can start a little poll here that will, as more people perhaps join in. Let's go like this. Was Israel right to strike? Wait, how am I going to word this poll? Was it the correct move for Israel to attack Iran? Right? And now we have here yes, no. So we're going to start the poll and you guys can decide and we'll see. Okay, Dragon, who's on my live streams a lot, says hello. So good to see you, man. Sean Lloyd asks if I'm Jewish. I am. And Kim Dead asks, I always seen your vlogs, but why Israel killing innocent people? Thanks for watching my vlogs. I don't think Israel wants to kill innocent people, but Israel is unfortunately in these wars. I would say not of its choice, yeah. And takes action, as it did now against Iran. Remember, Iran attacked Israel last year directly when they fired hundreds of rockets towards Israel. Israel intercepted them and we didn't have any casualties from those attacks, but they attacked us and continue to attack us through the proxies. So look, the question here really is what is going to happen regarding the Iranian nuclear program. That's really the biggest existential threat that Israel faces regarding Iran, right? Because that also gives so much leeway to the proxies to act when they know they're backed by an Iranian nuclear umbrella. So if Israel can actually, in a serious way, take out the Iranian nuclear program, then that will make a huge difference to the region. By the way, a difference which the Arab Sunni states would absolutely, totally support under the table, of course. They can't support Israel publicly, and they did the usual condemnations now coming from like the Gulf states and from Saudi Arabia and so forth, but they would be very happy if the Iranian nuclear program was taken out. Israel have nuclear? Yeah, that's the general assessment is Israel has nuclear weapons, right? It's never openly admitted it. We don't know how many they have. We don't know if it's basic atomic bombs or like more advanced hydrogen bombs and things like that. So, but Israel definitely has nuclear, yeah. Why Israel can have nuclear program and Iran not? That's a good question. Look, again, if in the 50s and 60s Israel wasn't ringed by states that are trying to destroy it, maybe it wouldn't have developed nuclear weapons. It wouldn't have been necessary. Also, the fact that Israel has nuclear weapons doesn't mean that it's a good thing for the world now for Iran to have nuclear weapons. Iran having nuclear weapons will set off a nuclear arms race with the Sunni Arab world. So as soon as Iran has nuclear, then Saudi's going to try to get nuclear. Jordan's going to try to get nuclear. Maybe Egypt will try to get nuclear. So, I don't see how Iran having nuclear weapons at this point is going to help anybody. Or yeah, you look nice and fresh like you slept tonight. Nah, I didn't sleep very well because I was woken up in the middle of the night by the alarms and whatever. Anthony, do you think Israel refusing to recognize its nukes helps or hurts its case against Iran? I don't think it makes a difference whether Israel officially recognizes the nukes or not. Like, everyone knows Israel has nukes, whatever. But also, like, a thing that people forget, and this is very important to know, if Israel were swallowed by the earth tomorrow, Iran would still pursue nuclear weapons, just to make that absolutely clear. Iran is also in conflict with the Sunni Arab world. I talked about this a little bit in my last video of the rifts across the Middle East, and Iran has an ethnic and sectarian rift with the Arab Sunni world. And there's a lot of battlegrounds where Iran is seeking to support those groups that are affiliated with it, sectarian-wise, meaning with the Shias. So, for example, with the Shias in Yemen, through the Houthis, with the Shias in Lebanon, Hezbollah, with the Shias in Iraq. So Iran has a lot of regional ambitions that have nothing to do with Israel. And they will pursue that nuclear weapon as a deterrence against other forces. You may remember, or you may forget, that from 1981 to 1989, or was it 1980 to 1988, don't remember the exact years, Iran was in a massive, massive war with Iraq under Saddam Hussein. And then the Americans actually supported Saddam Hussein, by the way. That war claimed maybe as many as 2 million people on both sides, which is about, 10 times all the wars Israel's been engaged in with all the Arab states around. A massive war, massive casualties. Over oil fields in southwest Iran, a region that is populated by Sunni Arabs, Khuzestan. So Iran historically has plenty of enemies in the region and plenty of reasons to pursue nuclear weapons regardless of Israel, yeah? So let's just make that clear. It's not like Israel gets rid of its nuclear weapons. Israel declares, oh, we dumped all our nuclear weapons, whatever, underground or in the sea. I don't know how you get rid of nuclear weapons without contaminating stuff or safely. And then Iran says, okay, that's what we wanted, now we're not pursuing nuclear weapons. Like, the nuclear program of Iran is not directly linked to Israel. Of course, the fact that Iran wants to annihilate Israel and turned Israel into its mega enemy, right? Because that wasn't the case before 1979. Under the Shah, Israel and Iran were friends. There was no problem whatsoever between the peoples, between the countries. And when the Islamic Republic took over, that's when this whole thing started between Israel and Iran, right? So it's 100% to do with the ideology that took over Iran in 79. They turned Israel into their enemy, not vice versa. All right? So that's the thing. But again, nuclear program is not directly linked to Israel, but of course, the fact that you have Israel as a nuclear power, as a major enemy now of Iran, it's definitely something that they can pump out there and say, look, Israel has nuclear weapons, we're pursuing nuclear weapons. But it's not the only reason. And Israel being swallowed by the earth and the nuclear weapons of Israel being swallowed by the earth is not going to stop Iran from trying to get nuclear weapons, just to be crystal clear about that. One Strong says, are you sure after the last 5 years that the Iranians don't also have a biological weapons program or even other dangerous, very recent weapons beyond just nuclear weapons? It's possible. It's possible. Israel is lucky in the sense that Iran is very far away. So if they do launch something at Israel, there's a lot of time to intercept it or to know about it or to prepare for it or to get people into shelters here and things like that. It's going to be very difficult for Iran to launch like a significant attack against Israel. And of course, if they try to use something like a biological weapon, which they might have, I don't know, that will earn them a lot of condemnations and isolation. So they kind of have to be careful how they go about trying to respond here. Kings say, I can see why people hate Israel. You guys are all chaos. Okay, fine. Like, I've always said the reason most of these people hate Israel is because Israel is Jewish, not because of what it does. All the states around Israel have done things much worse than Israel, and they don't get all this hate and so forth. Israel existing as a Jewish state is very frustrating for the forces in the region, and have always viewed the Jewish people as a minority group that can live in their states under their sovereignty. The Jews having their own state and being equals, but not just equals, but also in some ways superior. And I'm not saying this in a Talmudic whatever way of we are the chosen people, but defeating these armies in war, the Arab armies and now the Persian, the Islamic State armies, like winning the confrontations and having a more successful state on many levels is also extremely frustrating for them. Like, we are supposed to be minorities in their countries. We are supposed to be living as a minority under their sovereignty, you know? That's the way things were for 1,400 years. That's what's imprinted in the minds of all the peoples in the region. Like, how dare these Jews have their own state among us when they are supposed to be a minority in our Arab and Muslim lands? It's very, very frustrating for them. And that's why Israel is held to a different standard among them. Like I said, Iran, Iraq, 2 million people dead. Yemen, God knows how many people dead. People are starving over there right now. Thousands of people have starved in Yemen in the last few years. But the only call about famine you'll hear is about Gaza. Not that I'm not sympathetic to people suffering in Gaza, but they have not starved there. That's a simple fact. Yet they'll talk about it all the time and protest about it because it concerns Israel, and Israel as a state is something that they oppose very, very, like it brings out all the emotions because they view it as something that is fundamentally wrong. It's an ideological opposition to Israel being Jewish in its fundamental identity that rallies so many people around the globe, and also definitely rallies many people in the Arab and Muslim world or the Shia Muslim world against Israel because of what it represents. Like, all these people say, look, this is why people hate Israel. It's like, okay, you can believe that. We know different. I think a lot of people understand that that's not the reason, Israel's actions, but rather Israel being Jewish is the fundamental problem. And if you say, I'm not against Jews, I'm just against Zionism, that doesn't help. That doesn't solve the issue because, again, the problem is not Jews existing. The problem is Jews being their own sovereign. And I had another live stream where I talked about this very, very representative event that I witnessed when I was in Jerusalem that is imprinted in my mind because it perfectly represents the mindset of the Palestinians and others. When I was covering the Jerusalem Day parade, and there was an Arab journalist with his team there and his camera, and a bunch of like young religious Jews, and they started getting into this argument about Jerusalem because it was Jerusalem Day, right? And that's when they marched through the old city of Jerusalem. Claiming, which some people see as like a claim to all of Jerusalem, East Jerusalem, whatnot. An event that's like covered by a ton of journalists. And indeed, there were 500 cameras there that day. I kid you not 500, but at least 100. And that's not an exaggeration. So one of these Arab journalists was there. The kids came up to him and they started a conversation. I don't remember exactly how the conversation started about like who Jerusalem belongs to, right? The Palestinians say it's ours, the Jews say it's ours. Each one gave his historical claim and whatnot. And, one of the kids asked him, are you saying that we, the Jewish people, whom Jerusalem is the most important city in Judaism, always has been, cannot live in Jerusalem when you say it belongs to you? And then he says clearly to them, he says, you can live in Jerusalem, of course, the Jews, as my guest, right? You can stay here as my guest. And that is exactly the system that existed in the Muslim world, Arab and Muslim world, for over 1,000 years. The dhimmi system, right? Where you have Arab and Muslim empires, and the Jews can live as their guests, as a minority under submission, as dhimmis. In that case, you can be. And that's what they mean when we say we're not against Jews, we're just against Zionism. We're not against Jews living as a minority, as my guest. As long as I am the owner of the house and you are the guest, you are permitted to live under my sovereignty. That's what they're saying. And that is, of course, a form of bigotry because, there's tons of Arab and Muslim states where it's on the flag, it's on the symbols. They are the majority. It's their state, quote. But if it's the other way around where the Jews have a state, then it's not permissible. And that's what this whole conflict is about. Stella Zunuzi, we Iranians weren't Muslims, we are not Muslims, and we will never be Muslims. We Iranians are the people of Cyrus the Great who liberated the Jews and established freedom and democracy in human history. I agree 100%. I agree 100%. I mean, you have now, since 79, with the Islamic Republic, you have this regime that took over and has basically forced the population into this system that a lot of people don't believe in. And of course, the Persians have a tremendous history that goes back from even before Cyrus the Great. And everybody in Israel is aware of the declaration of Cyrus. It's one of the last big events that happened in the Bible. And we're aware that this is an ancient Iranian people that goes back millennia, one of the most ancient people that exist in the history of the world. More ancient than the Jewish people, okay? I'm willing to admit that. And there are a few people who can make that claim. So I have all the respect for the Iranian people and their culture and their history, and I would be the last person who wants to attach, Ali Khamenei and his gang of thugs to all the Iranian people. I'm not doing that, and I wish it weren't the case. And like I said, my dream in my lifetime is to see the Iranian regime fall in my lifetime and to visit Iran as a traveler and meet the Iranian people. It's my dream, but that's not the situation that we're in. Okay, let's see some other questions here. All right. Someone says I have to postpone my travel plans until this trouble is gone just to be safe, but the question is when. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. Things can always pop off here at any given moment. Max says, so rightly said, Alec, I'm not proud of this as Moroccan Muslim background. I regret this painfully. Despite Jews, we still are better in Morocco. I want to act to prepare this. No, so again, I visited Morocco. I made my videos from Morocco, and Morocco is one of the Muslim countries that Jews tend to have a relatively fonder memory of, rather than other places where in the 20th century there was this rise of anti-Jewish sentiment because of the rise of Arab nationalism. And there was a lot of good things that happened in Morocco with, there was this coexistence with the Amazigh Berber people and things like that. There's a lot of good things as well. Like, I don't want to, nobody has done more, no Israeli vlogger has done more than me to try to create content actually in the countries themselves, not from far away, from the safety of my home, to go to these places and to show that there are good things between Jews and Muslims. Like, I've done that legwork. To be fair, I went to Egypt, I went to Albania. I told the story of how Muslims saved Jews in the Holocaust. I went to Azerbaijan and showed the Jewish village there that lives, in this Muslim country. I went to Morocco, I went to Indonesia, like I went to places. The problem is whenever I said something nice and highlighted the positive things, and there are, this was very often used as a tool against me, meaning many people would, when I made a video in Albania and I showed that lots of Albanian Muslims save Jews and they allow Jews to pray in the mosque, which is amazing and a great story, they say, you see, we were always so wonderful to you, and look how you repay us by treating the Palestinians like this. This is the overwhelming response I got to any nice thing that I said, about the relations between Jews and Muslims. So this is what makes me more negative, because I have to set the record straight and say, yes, I want to highlight positive things, but when the response is not to try to highlight positive in the other direction, which there is, if you came to Israel, you would see there's lots of things that Jews and Arabs and Jews and Muslims do together, but instead used as a battering ram against me to show like, hey, look, we're so great and tolerant and you guys are terrible, then I have to set the record straight and say, no, that's not true. Yes, there are good things that you can highlight, also in Morocco. There are good things that you can highlight, but also it's worth noting that Jews lived as a subjects, a discriminated minority inside many of these empires and suffered many persecutions, again, with the systematic thing being the dhimmi status. Despite people trying to claim that dhimmi status is we protect you and whatever, no, it's a form of submission. You live under our sovereignty as a tolerated minority until you're not tolerated. That's what the system is for Jews and Christians was in the past. Are people today to blame for it? No, of course not. And that's why, was it all terrible and bad? Was there never cases where Jews and Muslims got along and good things happened as well? There were, and I tried to highlight that. But you can't, the problem is when people, they bring this past up in order to use it as this fake past up, right? To use it as a battering ram against Israel really frustrates me. And I see it again and again in the comments to my videos and online and places. Always they say, we treated the Jews so well until the Jews wanted to be self-determined in their own country in Israel, and then all the problems started. And that's not true. The Jews were a subjugated minority in these Muslim Arab countries, were discriminated against in many ways, and therefore it's a natural thing that Jews will want to have their own country And you can't use that supposed idyllic past that never really was to say that Israel is redundant and doesn't need to exist. And that's what frustrates me. And I'm going to point it out every time and time again. You know, if when I say nice things about possible coexistence and where there was coexistence between Jews and Muslims, and that like elicits a positive response, then that would be great. The problem is that it usually elicits a negative response, and that's what made me kind of not want to do it anymore. You know, that's why I don't want to go now to a place like Tunisia, where some people said you should come with a non-Israeli passport and hide, and then try to say nice things about the place after, I don't know, they firebombed synagogues a couple times post October 7th. Like, it makes me not want to do it because I know what the response is going to be. The response is going to be, look how well we treated the Jews historically, and then you went to Israel and you effed everything up. That's what they're going to say. So I don't want to do it. You know, I would love to do it. I would love to go to these places and make a nice vlog like I used to do. But it's like I don't have the motivation to do it because it doesn't elicit a good response. It just makes people more negative. So why should I do it? Why should I risk myself? Why should I hide? Because, you know I can't say I'm from Israel and like a lot of things. Why should I do all of this and then just, have people attack me and be like, get the F out of here, or, look, this is evidence of how bad you are. I don't want to do it, unfortunately. And I wish I would, because I do believe in building bridges where possible, but it has to be based on truth and it has to be based on being honest. And, it's hard to do that. T.P. Linton says, most Israeli Jews are Mizrahi Sephardi with a long history living under Arab Muslim subjugation. I don't know why there's so much focus on Israeli Jews being European. I agree. Part of that is also our fault in Israel because we never had a Mizrahi Sephardic prime minister or something. The Zionist movement that is highlighted, which was the majority of the early one, let's be honest, of the modern Zionism. It's true that there were also people in modern Zionism, meaning people who wanted politically to create self-determination in the land, who came from places like North Africa, like some of the early neighborhoods in Tel Aviv, like the Kerem Teimanim, the Yemenites vineyard translated, and the Shalush family, and all these. There were people who came also from those places, but like the earlier Zionist movement of the 19th century was very much Jews from Europe, right? Ashkenazi Jews like Theodor Herzl, David Ben Gurion, and so forth. And then you had the big exodus from the Muslim and Arab world that came in the second half of the 20th century, from Iraq, from Yemen, from all these places, from Egypt, from Syria. And, you had an established people in power who were Ashkenazi, and then you had the Sephardic ones who came, who also faced some discrimination and things like that. So they didn't get the prominent positions in the leadership of Israel, and that's one of the reasons why they're not as visible also to the outside, and that's our fault as well as a society I mean, I'm not saying they're discriminated against today, because that's not true. They were discriminated against in the past, that they were put in like the lesser good refugee camps, right? The Ma'abarot and things like that. And that's part of our history that we have to own up to in Israel. But it's also just something that happens in a lot of places where the group that was there earlier first, so to speak, gets into the positions of influence, and then the newer groups have a harder time catching up and getting into those positions of influence. The way, I don't know. Like in a lot of countries, you see that a lot of the time, all the leadership comes from a specific area of the country or a specific group. Like the way the whole military leadership of Germany during the 19th century were all Prussians, for example, from Prussia in East Germany, just like an example, So that's the thing, where the way all the U.S. presidents all came from, more from like certain parts of the U.S., and they were all of like English ancestry and not like Italian or German ancestry, shit like that. Like it happens all over the place. But like part of the reason why these people are not visible is our fault. That's why I don't even like myself being a spokesperson for Israel, because we have too many like Anglo Jews who are doing the talking because we speak good English, and then it gives the impression that all Jews like came from Brooklyn yesterday or something to Israel, which is of course not true. Like we need more of these Iraqi Jews and Egyptian Jews and Persian Jews and stuff to be doing these talks, so people can like see them more visibly, than the same old person who speaks good English because, his mother's family were American Jews or something. Hey, Alec, Ethiopia misses you. Thank you. I really hope to get back to Ethiopia at some point. Really loved my time there. I didn't get to visit Gondar, so I hope that that happens sometime. Also hope to do more videos about the Ethiopian Jews here in Israel, which I hope some of my Ethiopian viewers will love. There's going to be a Sigd holiday in November. I plan to do like a series on that, which is an Ethiopian Jewish holiday. And, oh, it's Sammy. So why do you have this picture? Why don't you have your own picture, man? Yeah, I mean, I hope to go back and see you there. It was so much fun in Ethiopia. I really enjoyed my time. Okay, let's go back to Stephen Colbert is my guy. All right, let's go back to the discussion here on Iran, right? Stella Zunuzi, we Iranians love Iran and stand with you. We are proud Zionists. Okay, I mean, like again, I know a lot of I've met so many Iranians who are like that. They just say we love Israel, we don't have a problem with Israel, and our own regime is destroying our lives and diverting all these resources for this war that we don't want. And it's not everyone, but I've met a lot of Iranians like that, and of course, in that sense, we're together, right? Like we both have a shared enemy that is the Islamic Republic, right? That's making our lives bad for no reason, making the lives of the Iranians bad and the lives of the Israelis bad by having this agenda of, wanting to destroy Israel and putting all this money and resources into these proxy wars that don't benefit the Iranian people in any way, of course, Behi says, it may look funny, but we are happy. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I did a poll now. I should do another, I don't know how many Iranians I have here, but I would love to see some poll of Iranians somehow of like what they think about this attack, Because I'm sure there are a lot of people who don't mind it. The idea that Iranians support Israel is just as crazy as when they told us the Iraqis would love us troops during Operation Iraqi Freedom. Yeah, well, that's something, it's just true enough to let people to lie to themselves. No, but I think it's a different situation. Of course, if Israeli tanks rolled into Tehran and then Israel occupied Tehran, they would never love Israel, of course. IDF has airdropped Alec in Iran. Alec is busy fighting the Persians alone. But I'm saying, again, I don't know. I don't have access to all the people, but I know a lot of Iranians who don't have anything against Israel. I even talked to an Iranian who she told me, like, we're hoping that Israel attacks Iran. Yeah, I know this sounds like justification for warmongering or something, but it's like, I don't want a war with Iran, obviously. I just don't want an Iranian regime with nuclear weapons with a ring of proxies around Israel. That's what I don't want. And I would love for the Iranian regime to be replaced by a proper government that has the interests of the Iranian people in mind and doesn't threaten me and a bunch of other people in the region. Do you think that they will fight on the field? These battles don't happen on the field so much, but again, through proxies, yeah. I mean, when Israel fights Hamas and fights Hezbollah, they're kind of fighting Iranian proxies on the field. You can call it like that. Someone says, I came to Tel Aviv for the Pride Week event, like Israeli Pride Month, and then there's the Pride Parade in Tel Aviv, and was canceled. Why did they not wait 24 hours? Never mind, God bless Israel. Yeah, that's unfortunate. You have no right to tell a country they can't have nukes. Okay, I mean, all this thing about like rights. You have the right to do this. You have the right to do that. You have the right, like, there isn't exactly like a tribunal of people analyzing every event and like who has the right to do what and who is, it's like kind of like not how the world works. It's, it's like people saying you have no right to depose Hamas in Gaza. You don't have a right. Right based on what? Which international tribunal exactly? If there's an Islamic fundamentalist group sitting there calling for our annihilation and fires endless amount of rockets into Israel and invades Israel, then we're going to respond and make sure it doesn't happen. That's it. I don't know about who has a right to do what. Same thing also with the Iranians. I mean, they have the right to openly call for Israel's destruction, to use all their resources on proxies around Israel that attack Israel, to build a nuclear program with an explicit military goal. And we have the right to try to stop them from doing that. That's it, like right, In the end of the day, they have agency to take whatever actions they want, and there is a cost potentially for those actions. And the cost is partially also what happened here today with this strike. What else can I respond here? Alec is an expert in sword warfare who raise Israeli flag in Tehran. My God, this is my reaction world. I really don't know sometimes if you're like a real person or not because you say the funniest stuff. Behi says, we are more concerned about Iranian rockets and drones to kill us by human errors than Israeli strike. We have confidence on Israeli army and the accuracy of their missiles. Okay, well, thanks for that. I mean, look, obviously, if the war escalates between Israel and Iran, then there will be people who are harmed on both sides, for sure. It's clear this guy only responds to his yes men. I don't know. I respond to a lot of anti-Israel comments. But some comments, they're so stupid that I don't even know. I mean, look, my last response was to this Renzo saying you have no right to tell a country they can't have nukes. I just gave a long response, so I don't know if that's correct what you said. Also, someone said that Israel, it's crazy to think that Iranians will support Israel the way, like it was crazy to think Iraqis would support the US, and I answered that question as well. So I think that's not correct what you're saying, that I only respond to people who agree with me. Are you a reporter on I-24 News? I freelance for them, yeah. I used to work for them full-time, now I freelance, but very rarely. Just to, make some extra money and have some work in the media and the contacts and all that, which is very useful. But I don't work enough. I wish I would work more. Hi, Alec. I hope we are all safe during these times. Answer my question, Mohammed. Do you believe that the Ayatollah regime would fall in 3-4 years? I don't know. I'm not a prophet. I really don't know. This thing, when you have a regime like the Islamic Republic, the Ayatollah regime, that is held together by force and has, 30% support, 40% support, 25, I don't know what it is. I know it's less than 50% of the people who support it. It's hard to say because there's a bunch of people who want to take it down, but they have, control of the military and of the armed forces and whatever. So it's hard to know how they would take such a thing down. It's like something that can happen. It can happen instantly and it can happen in 50 years, Like I could be on my deathbed in 50 years time and the Islamic Republic is still there. It's also possible that next month the Islamic Republic falls, like what happened in Syria. It can happen in an instant, but nobody knows how and when. I do believe it won't last forever because in the end of the day, it's a self-destructive government that doesn't bring any type of progress to the people and harms the people. And eventually, I think such governments are destined to go away. The same way the Soviet Union was destined to fall because it was just economically unviable and destructive to the people. And eventually it fell apart. I think that's what's going to happen in Iran, but it could happen, very bad regimes can die very, very slowly. Yeah. So to say that it's imminent in the next 3-4 years, I would say I absolutely cannot guarantee such a thing. Is it possible? Is it one of the possibilities of a future where a lot of things can happen? Yes, it's possible. It is possible that in 3-4 years, the Islamic Republic falls. Is it likely? I would say probably not that likely. Unfortunately, I wish it were likely, but it's not. All right, what else? Hi, Alec. Hope we're all safe during these times. Someone says the conflict in Gaza has to end. People in Israel should go against Netanyahu because the problem grows by time and it could lead to a bigger war. Yeah, I mean, that was obviously the concern from the beginning, and we saw that there was a bigger war, right? There was the Houthis got involved, Hezbollah, Iran, so it did lead to a bigger war that's still been contained to a certain degree. I would love for the war to Gaza to end, but with the return of all the hostages and a system in Gaza, let's call it that way. I don't know government. I don't know like what type of what could reasonably lead there in a sustainable and secure way that is not dedicated to Israel's eradication. Like if Hamas retake control of Gaza, then they'll rebuild, and then at some point the war will restart, and then like a lot of this will have been for nothing. So I don't want that to happen. So I want the war in Gaza to end, but I want it to end in a condition where it's not setting up the next war. And that's a very difficult thing to do. Also, to say that I trust Netanyahu in this process, I don't. Like, to be honest, I don't. I don't trust Netanyahu. I don't, he has a bunch of bad options to try to pursue. So he's done the typical thing that he's done throughout his entire political career, which is to stall and not make a decision, which has always been bad for us. Because eventually, if you stall and you don't make a decision, then you're just kicking the can down the road, and eventually you have to do something later at a higher price, including with hostage release, which I think in the end, you end up paying maybe a higher price for the hostages later. This is what happened in the Gilad Shalit case. So I don't think Netanyahu really has a plan. I think he's winking at his right-wing coalition, which is talking about, the Trump plan of helping people leave Gaza or maybe reoccupying parts of Gaza, which I'm not sure is viable or the correct or moral solution. I don't think he would really be able to do that because he doesn't have the U.S. support or international legitimacy to do it, which is, again, bad for Israel because it just comes out that Israel is, that's the goal of the war, but Israel can't do it because it doesn't, people are stopping them. So I just think that Netanyahu has mismanaged this war in many ways. I think all the military achievements have nothing to do with him, including the military achievement now. In Iran, Israel has a really high-level military, intelligence, Mossad, all those things, and all those things work independently, right? So Netanyahu could leave tomorrow, and I could become prime minister, and the operation would look basically the same. Like this idea that Netanyahu has an impact on the actual military operations, I think is bogus. So Israel has really high-level military achievements in the last year and a half with the Hezbollah and this, but it doesn't have any, how do you say? Hesegim Medinim, we say in Hebrew, but like, let's call it diplomatic achievements, okay? He doesn't have any diplomatic achievements in this war. He has diplomatic failures. Failures when it came to Israel being bombarded in the north and Lebanon, bringing attention to that. In the end, when Israel responded, then Israel was blamed. He doesn't have the diplomatic achievements when it comes to Gaza, the relation, like doesn't have diplomatic achievements. He doesn't have proper diplomatic goals. He stalls and he lets things run. He has political interest in keeping his coalition together. So I just don't think I don't think he's leading this war. He's being led in the war by circumstance, And that's a troubling thing to think about. Israel shouldn't attack Iran, says Alexander Abramovich. Mohammed Essam, Iran lost their foreign influence. Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, probably in the list too. So that's something that could affect like the survival of the regime, right? So if we're talking about the possibility of the Islamic Republic of Iran going the way of the dodo, like going extinct, then the basically fall of all the proxies, like Syria was kind of a proxy under Assad, and now Hezbollah weakened, and maybe Hamas, and maybe Houthis, all those things could maybe have an impact on the survival of the regime. I don't know, So that's a question of like what will happen to all the proxies following, Iran's continued weakening by, the blows that Hezbollah and Hamas took, and Syria, and, also Yemen, and now Iran itself. Someone says, much love from Algeria. Much love to you. I hope you're doing well. Sabel. Do you think Israel should consider the effect military operations have on the increase of anti-Semitism around the world? How does Israel manage this war while keeping the West on their side? Look, that's a constant question. But Sabel says, I'm Christian. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know there were any Christians left in Algeria. But this thing, it's kind of a strange thing. I see a lot of people who, they're in Europe or the US, and they think that the number one thing Israel needs to think about when it comes to military and safety issues is what people will think about them. It's like yeah, the PR is crucial, and Israel needs to think about PR. But more important than PR is like what the actual security reality is. Like this idea that you make decisions based on what people think as your primary consideration, I find insulting. You know? It's I remember there was this this idiot Dave Smith, this comedian who keeps popping up in Twitter and on podcasts, and doesn't know anything about the Middle East, and he's this libertarian isolationist who's super anti-Israel now, and he had that debate with Douglas Murray and this Dave Smith guy, where he was on another podcast or something. I think he was on Piers Morgan or something like that, where he's like, Israel, read the room. Which is this thing that people say on Twitter, read the room, which is like what people are thinking. People aren't supporting you anymore. You don't have don't you see that people hate you? Don't you see that people this? And it's like, this is why you have to stop the war. And it's like, that's not the main consideration. I don't remember the exact wording that he used, but it was something like that. And it's like, that's not the main consideration, is what people think. Reading the room. You read the room. Oh, look, people are against you. So now that means the war is illegitimate. Or the war, or the war games the war aims are illegitimate. And like, sorry to burst people's bubble, but what you podcasters sitting in the US, or what you even government or prime minister sitting somewhere else is not the primary consideration. Of course, you don't want to be isolated, and that would be bad. But in the end of the day, like, the primary consideration for these actions is not, oh, do people like us or not like us? Do they agree or not agree? Will they become more or less anti-Semitic, or hate us or not hate us? Like, in the end of the day, you have a reality, which is you are surrounded by fundamentalist armed groups that are open about their goal of destroying you, and that attack you and attacked you in the last year and a half. And what actions do you take in order to stop them from doing that? That is the primary consideration, not reading the room of what people are thinking. Of course, as the war drags on, people's patience wanes, people want it to stop, they don't want to see images of war. That's totally understandable. But it's not the primary consideration. And here again is my criticism of Netanyahu. I think he had a window to try to end this war quickly, back early on, like over a year ago. And then there was this 3 months of maneuvering where Israel basically did nothing. Part of it was because Biden told him not to enter Rafah. But again, it's because you don't know how to present the case. You don't know how to build diplomatic alliances. You have far-right ministers in your government who create animosity among your allies, Ben Gvir and Smotrich, and you don't know how to rein them in. And you create the impression that they're leading you and not you leading them. These are all failures of Netanyahu as a prime minister. And it's like a thing that I say when people say I don't criticize the government. I criticize the government a lot, as you can see here, but not in the way that Israel haters want. They want me to condemn the genocide and condemn Israel's attack and say that it's all Israel's fault. I don't do that. It's their fault, Hamas, for starting this. It's the fault of the Muslim and Arab world primarily for not accepting the concept of the Jews being self-determined and being in a constant war with us. But with that being said, in the situation that we're in, we have a lot of massive failures. Massive failures of our leadership that is very, very poorly leading the diplomatic effort, has no real diplomatic achievements, I would say, in this war. Only military achievements, and is a prime minister that's being led by his extremists rather than reining them in. So that's the problem that we face from a very, very bad government that leads us poorly. But of course, the things like, the military strike in Iran, that could have been conducted by any Israeli government, because the Ayatollah in Iran and the Islamic Republic wanting to destroy Israel and building a ring of proxies around Israel and attacking Israel and building a nuclear program, that's not relevant to who is in the Israeli prime minister. Yeah, so let that be said. What is the meaning of PR? Like public relations. Yeah? Someone said. So like I said, the war, in the war front, there's the actual military achievements, and then there's what are you doing diplomatically to build alliances, to gain legitimacy, to have diplomatic and what do you call it? Again, what for some reason these words, because I watch the Hebrew news and stuff, and like I have the Hebrew term like which is Hisdel Medini. Let's call it let's call it diplomatic solutions. Okay, diplomatic solutions to the issues in the long term. In this sense, Israel is has not put forward something that can work. Diplomacy, yeah, diplomacy, but it's a bit more than diplomacy, because diplomacy is negotiating, it's sending envoys and foreign ministers to talk, but the result of the diplomacy, right? The result of diplomacy is some type of arrangement, yeah? A solution, let's call it that. Like a two-state solution is not diplomacy, it's a solution, supposedly, yeah? And diplomacy achieves that national solution, or something. I don't know what the correct word is here, but I'm just saying. We need a new Golda, someone says. Okay, guys, ask questions. I've been ranting here. Ask your questions. It could be practical questions about what actually happened today, what's going on. I mean, I should probably look at the updates, because there was another strike on Tabriz that I was talking about that happened in broad daylight hours after the initial strike, which says something about the ability of the Iranians to even stop Israel from doing things, because they kind of like knew it was coming and were on high alert, and Israel still was able to attack them. Mohammed says, if the Ayatollah regime collapses, who do you think should rule? Democratically elected government? Let's be real, the Shahs aren't any better when it comes to democracy. So I disagree. I think the Shah, I know it's like kind of a talking point by some people to say that the Shah was just as bad as the Islamic Republic. I disagree. I think the Shah was an absolute monarch of a way, right? Call it a dictator. He had a secret service, the Savak, that used to arrest people, dissidents, and so forth. But Iran, as a country, made really big advances under the Shah. Was economically advancing in many ways. Women were free. They didn't have to wear veils and things like that. You see pictures of Iran, the women are wearing heels and skirts and stuff. It was a much better society on many levels under the Shah. But it wasn't democratic. Of course, I would love to see Iran be democratic and have full and proper elections, representative government and all that. That would be like a dream for me, as much as anyone. How realistic is that? I don't know. I think actually the Shah returning is more realistic than that. The Shah in exile, there are people who want the Shah to return and all this. I think it's more realistic. Is it the best thing? No. Very interesting thing about Iran is I was reading up on Iran in the past, and what a lot of people don't know is that the initial revolution against the Shah had many factions, with the Islamists being one faction, right? So you had the communists, you had the leftists and the libertarians and the college students. All of these people were protesting against the Shah. They overthrew the Shah, and then Khomeini started to consolidate his power by knocking off these other factions and becoming basically the only faction. And this is something that we've seen a lot in revolutions in the past. And this is the danger of revolutions, is that you have a revolution and then you have one tyrant replaced by another, which is what happened in Iran, unfortunately. And that's why I don't know, if you had like a representative government, then you would have the Islamists as one of the big factions there, like the kind of Muslim Brotherhood style. This is a Muslim Brotherhood, the Shia version of Muslim Brotherhood. I don't know, call it what you want. And they could like eventually sideline like the democratic forces, voices and movements in Iran. This is what happened in the Islamic Revolution. There were lots of liberals and leftists and communists. There were all kinds of factions, and they all disappeared. And were taken over by the Islamists in Iran, unfortunately. So instead of having like a representative government, democratic representative government that had different factions, and one of those factions could be a more conservative Muslim Shia faction, which is fine. A lot of societies have conservative religious factions. The U.S. has, Catholics and evangelicals. Israel has in this, but that play in the democratic system where you vote and you have representatives to advocate for various things. And and that's okay. Like, it's okay for a Muslim society to have conservatives who advocate for more traditional Muslim stuff. I'm not against that. I think Islam can be a moderating force as well in many ways. We see it in like some of the states that are doing well and are not engaging in regional whatever. Could be like in the UAE, they're still very religious. So that's fine. But the question is, if you try to like consolidate your control and to impose something on the rest of the society, which is what happened in the revolution in Iran, unfortunately. So like, obviously the ideal solution is to have a democratic society with open elections where both the seculars and the more religious people vote their representatives, and then they hash things out in parliament. That would be ideal. But is that realistic? Probably not. Sabar says, no, bro, we need to destroy Islam. I don't know. I converted to Christianity. Jesus is king. No, we don't need to destroy Islam, but we need to live, we need to all live together, and we need, whatever, like people who are Muslim and so forth, to live in societies where there's enough separation of religion and state. I don't know, where you can be Muslim and conservative and you can be not Muslim and everybody gets represented. That's what we need. Bro, I respect your opinion. You don't know this Sharia law. But again, do you have to implement Sharia law everywhere? Like, I mean, again, I've been to Muslim countries that are fine, that are moderate. Like, I've been to people get mad when I call Albania a Muslim country. It's not a Muslim country, but it has a majority of Muslims. Albania, Azerbaijan, whatever. And people pray and stuff, and a lot of people don't, and it's fine, like, So I don't know, like, question for you. Shah was a dictator, but made Iran better. Would you give that same support for the COP, who are CCP, who are tyrants, but made China better economically? The Chinese Communist Party. So, look, first of all, the Chinese Communist Party is definitely better than Mao, yeah? But that's an interesting question. Look, I don't support the Chinese Communist Party, obviously. It's a question, though, of like alternatives. Like I said, I would prefer a democratically elected parliament in Iran. But if I have to choose between the Islamic Republic and the Shah, I would choose the Shah 100 times, for sure. I would choose Islam. I would choose, and someone wrote Islam here. I would choose the Shah 100 times over. If I have to choose between two options. I don't know. Look, there was also the issue of the coup that was instigated by, in some part, by the U.S. and by Britain, right, where they helped put the Shah there. They deposed Mohammad Mosaddegh, who was the prime minister. So there were like oil interests and things like that. So there was a foreign influence here. One of like the more famous foreign interventions. As someone who doesn't like to explain every action through foreign intervention, which is very popular today in the internet and in the podcasts and in the academia. But in this case, there was a foreign intervention that helped put the Shah, give the Shah more power, right? Because he was pro-American and pro-British. So that's like also an ugly reality we have to face up to, and like what impact that had on Iran historically, I don't know exactly. When did the attack happen? So it happened, right now it's almost 12 hours ago. Let's say 11 and a half hours ago. I say that because you guys are in different places around the world and my time is not your time. In my American home community, I do not feel safe around Jews. Okay. Why? Do Jews go around attacking people in the US? Not to my knowledge. In Egypt, the Islamists particularly also gained influence after the fall of Mubarak, who inherited the authoritarian system established by Nasser. Yeah, I mean, look, the thing is, the way I see it is that any kind of like Muslim Brotherhood style government, which is a government that really wants to impose the religion on a state level, cannot really truly be democratic. I think a country that has Muslims and Islam can be democratic, like Indonesia or Albania. But I don't, or is Albania Democrat? I think it is. But I don't think the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a specific system that marries the religion and the state in a specific way, and some people will say that Islam is inherently like this. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not a theologian, and I see examples where it's not exactly like that, like in Malaysia and Indonesia and stuff. But the Muslim Brotherhood cannot be democratic. Let's make that clear. The Muslim Brotherhood cannot be democratic. The Islamic Republic of Iran cannot be democratic. You say bad move from Israel, should never attack Iran. I don't know. I don't know exactly like what the better alternative is. Because in the end of the day, Iran is pursuing the nuclear weapon, and I don't know how you stop them from getting that. Besides by using a military assault. Because you can do sanctions, and you can do Atomic Energy Agency and inspections and this, but for them, that's the plan is to get that weapon, and then they have this umbrella of protection for the proxies. Like, I don't think they would be stupid enough to use the weapon, although you never know with a religious fundamentalist, right? But I think they would use that umbrella of the nuclear weapon in order to give an umbrella to Hezbollah and Hamas and stuff, the proxies, to create the mayhem in the region. I am a proud anti-Semite. Fine, that's your problem, not mine. What's your take about Greater Israel map? I think Greater Israel map is nonsense. The Greater Israel, meaning like the Euphrates to the Nile, is just complete BS. It's kind of like Protocols Elders of Zion, which is a known forgery from 1903 that still many people believe is real today. You can buy it in a bookstore in Egypt in Arabic, and they think it's real, and it's fake. So same with Greater Israel, which is that Israel will go from the Nile to the Euphrates. It's just nonsense. It's not possible. We're 8 million Jews surrounded by 400 million Arabs. We barely have enough population for our own country. Half of our own country is barely Jewish. Like if the Galil in the north, and particularly the Negev in the south, which is where there's a lot of Bedouin gangs that commit crimes and things like that. And just build like illegally on whatever land they want to build on, which is of course against the law. You have to buy property and land to build on. We don't even control our own country, barely. So the idea that Greater Israel, like Israel has sites on these places, it's just nonsense. It's one thing to say. It's one thing to say that a leader is lying and that's what he wants, right? So you can look at someone like Netanyahu and say Netanyahu really wants to take over all whatever. And we don't know what's in somebody's heart, even though, again, there's no evidence for this. But one of the ways I know this perverted way of thinking is what people said about me, right? I know what I believe in. So you can say I don't know what the Israeli leadership believes in because I don't know what's in their head, even though I can maybe tell based on their positions, yeah? And there is no Greater Israel position except maybe statements by Smotrich about something, maybe. But I know what's in my head, right? So when I went to Saudi Arabia and I went to Haibal, which is where Prophet Muhammad defeated the Jews and then force converted them or massacred them and did all these things to subdue the Jews, there was an Egyptian lady who did a reaction video about me and said, look, this is what the Zionists do. They scope places out so they can take them later. And he's pretending to be respectful, but he's not actually respectful. And she just like made me into someone who is preparing the ground to take over Saudi Arabia, which is absurd, And I'm saying like this thing exists where everything we do is in order to take things over like secretly. You can't argue with that. It doesn't make any sense, but they believe it. And yeah, tons of people in the Arab Muslim world believe in Greater Israel. The Nile to the Euphrates. Israelis want the Nile to the Euphrates, and it's just complete nonsense, but people will believe it, just like they believe the Protocols of Elders of Zion, which is a debunked document. It's a forgery. It's a copy-paste almost of a book that was written 70 years ago with a change of this. We know it's a forgery, and people believe it. They still believe it. 100 years after it was proven to be a forgery, people still believe it. So people will believe this. What can you do? What can you do? Did you pay attention to the Javier Milei visit in Israel? What do you think about it? I didn't pay much visit. I saw a speech that the opposition leader Yair Lapid gave next to Milei, Javier Milei, the president of Argentina, where he said, look, Benjamin Netanyahu, this is how you do a real right-wing economy, which you're not doing, which is true. Netanyahu does basically a socialist economy for his ultra-Orthodox allies. So I saw that, where I saw the opposition leader using the Milei visit to score political points. That's the only thing I noticed about it. And I know he got a bunch of, praise and prizes and things like that because he supports Israel and because he's been able to turn the Argentinian economy around. And we also have a lot of Jews here who came from Argentina. So, a lot of good stuff, of basically positive stuff about Milei, kissing Milei's feet and all that, which I'm not against. I love Milei, but, the usual political stuff. Who knows? USA will be pissed. Trump will be pissed. Maybe, yeah. CNN. But again, it's like when you say other people will be angry, it's always Israel stuff is analyzed through the prism of other people don't like it, therefore it's wrong. Like, not everything that you do that other people don't like is wrong by definition. It's a lot of people are angry that Israel destabilizes the Middle East. If Israel didn't exist, the Middle East would be stable. Because the issue is the Middle East is dominated by Muslim states, and particularly Arab Muslim states, that have a lot of minorities that are under the boot, of these forces. So it's like, yeah, Israel, when you say Israel destabilizes, the thing is, they don't like Israel's existence. It annoys them. They want to attack Israel militarily, and then Israel stops them from doing that, and the Middle East is destabilized. It's this thing. It's like this instead of understanding that you have here a country with its self-determination and that's surrounded by hostile countries, and the problem is that those countries are hostile to the Jewish state and support military attacks against it throughout history. Instead, it's like, oh, Israel, if Israel weren't there, as if there aren't other conflicts going on, which there are many, So what can you do? Yeah, we're here. There are lots of forces that want us gone. We don't let them happen. And people get angry that we take action. But that doesn't mean that we're wrong. Necessarily. Like, some things we do are wrong. Like, not everything Israel does is right. But in this case, Iran is the aggressor against Israel and has always been because of ideology, not because of what Israel does. There was no problem between Israel and Iran until the Islamic Republic took power and turned Israel into their mortal enemy. And all of that will be reversed, of course, once the Islamic Republic goes and Iran is under the control of the Shah or under some other force, I don't know, a democratically elected parliament, whatever it is. And then, there'll be no conflict between us. So it's up to them. In the end, Israel will be left fighting a lot of countries and needs... Where are you from, Alexander? Are you from Russia? There's a Russian name, but you might not be from Russia. In the end, Israel will be left fighting a lot of countries. It needs to make peace, not fight more wars. When Israel can make peace, it makes peace. When Egypt offered to make peace with Israel, it made peace. When Jordan offered to make peace with Israel, it made peace. When it was possible to do it with the Gulf states, the UAE and Bahrain, Israel made peace. Now maybe Syria, Shara, there's been indications that he wants a deal. So we're not against peace, but there are some people who don't want to make peace with us. When the possibility has been there, peace has come. I haven't seen Israel turn down peace in favor of war. When has Israel turned down peace? When there was a real possibility of peace and gone to war. Not happened. Oh, from Balkans? Okay. What, like Bosnia or something? From Balkan, but where Balkan? Balkan is a lot of stuff. Montenegro, okay. I made a video from what was the name of that town in Montenegro that I crossed? The Montenegro town with all the that's mostly Albanian. I forgot the name of the place already. next to the border with Ulcinj. Yeah, Ulcinj. Yeah, I made a video from Ulcinj in Montenegro where I looked for Shabtai Tzvi's grave. It was actually a video I really enjoyed making. Didn't do very well, but you know, that doesn't mean it's not a good video, so you can check it out. It's called Searching for the False Messiah. Cairo won the award of the most beautiful and cleanest city a century ago in 1925 when Egypt was still a monarchy. That's crazy because Cairo is not a clean city right now. I mean, I was there recently. It's a very interesting and cool city, but to say it's clean, no. Excellent answer, Sabel. Gabriel Sittengang, free Palestine from wrong doctrine. I agree. I watch your channel, Alex, says Alexander. Thanks. Okay, cool. Michael Mahoney says, you will never get rid of me. I haven't followed all the, I watched almost all videos. Okay. Cool. Wait, so we have a poll that says we have 179 votes. That's a decent amount. And enable DVR. What's this? Did you guys get any commercials during the thing, by the way? I'm just interested. That's like a way I get a little bit of extra income from these live streams, you know, to keep the channel going. Did anyone see, did you guys get any ads? No ads. Why is that? Analytics. Funny how sometimes there are ads and sometimes not. Cairo streets used to be washed by things daily. That's crazy. The Cairo streets used to be washed with soap and actually maintained. Interesting. Why does this keep happening? But I like me, the tech is failing me. Like I put a thumbnail in this live stream, and then once I start the live stream, the thumbnail just disappears and it goes back to just putting my my little YouTube circle thing, and then it looks really ugly and people aren't going to press and watch it, which is the goal, of course, right? You know. As Ethiopian, we stand with Israel. Yeah, I met a lot of Ethiopians that like Israel because Israel supports them and militarily as well, which is not always a good thing because, you know, there's the war with Tigray and this, and I don't know what's going on there enough to know like who should be supported militarily. But, you know, we have a connection with the Ethiopians. We have the Ethiopian Jews. We have a good relationship with their government. And yeah, and like I met an Ethiopian when I was there, and he said, and we started talking about like what's going on in Israel, and he says, we see how in the media they are talking about how Israel is attacking Gaza and all that. And he said, no, no, no. We remember who started it. That's what he told me. We remember when they went into Israel and they killed all those people and kidnapped those people. We're not fooled. And I like that because that's, you know, remembering how it started and why it's happening. Yeah? Nanny was an Ethiopian Jew. My nanny was an Ethiopian Jew. Oh, okay. Wait, I'm going to the studio. Okay, now this thing is on. It says monetization on. So I wonder why people aren't getting ads. Maybe because you're not allowed to make ads from a war subject. You're not allowed to make money off of war. Not that I make any money from these live streams. It's so funny. Like if I had made a video, if I now publish this video as an actual video on YouTube, I'll make a lot more money than on a live stream. A lot more, like a few bucks, you know, not a lot of money. But like on a live stream, it's nothing. It's like a few bucks every single time. It's really, really frustrating because I put a lot of effort into the live streams, and you know, if you could actually make some income from the live streams and gives you more motivation to actually like, make videos and things like that. Because that's the problem with YouTube. It's just not very, very profitable, you know? Privacy unlisted. Why does that? Oh my God. Wait a second. You know what I'm gonna do here? I'm gonna go into this. Details. Wait. How about Rumble? No, Rumble's stream settings. Well, One Strong says, how does Russia's increased involvement in North Central Africa affect Israel's connection to the region? Well, first of all, if we're talking about Iran, which is supposed to be the subject of this stream, right? Then Russia has it will be very interesting to see what Russia does. Russia support, is kind of like has a mini alliance with Iran, right? They bought all these Iranian drones to use in Ukraine. It's the anti-American axis, which includes China. So like the Russian response here will be crucial. With that being said, there is a chance that this a strike and a potential Iranian retaliation in the vicinity of the Gulf can rock oil prices or affect oil supply. And if that happens, Russia will benefit big time. So that's something to look out for. Russia has a real interest in this conflict kind of escalating because they'll make a big buck off of it, which they need to sustain their war in Ukraine. So, Russia should be on Iran's side from just like a geopolitical thing, but they have an interest here maybe of this war going on. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, the Kremlin came out and they condemned the Israeli strike, which was obvious that they were going to do that. But oil price up 20% today. There you go. There you go. And that's good for Iran. So, for Russia. So it'll be interesting to see how that one goes. Anyway, our poll here is at 188 votes. Where are all these 188 people? I don't see 188 people in this live stream. But we gotta, I guess, keep people came and went. We got 188 votes with a 50% saying that was it the correct move for Israel to attack Iran? 49% say yes, and 51% say no. So it's almost 50-50. We're at 190 votes, which is quite a lot, because we only have 50 people in the live stream now, So yeah, again, people came and voted. Bro, do you eat couscous? Not so much. I'm not that big a fan of couscous, by the way, but I don't have a Tunisian grandma to make amazing couscous, so maybe that's my problem. How did you react when Mubarak fell in Egypt? I mean, that was a long time ago. I didn't know enough about politics back then, or Egyptian politics, to know the meaning of it, of Mubarak versus Morsi. But yeah, we talked about this another time, that people in Israel were scared when Morsi came to power because he would be pro-Hamas and this, which he was. But then he was replaced by Sisi. So there were concerns with Morsi that he could cancel the peace agreement and, do all kinds of things. So, yeah. Do you know baklava? Yeah, it's like an Arab sweet. I think it's Arab, right? It's not North Africa. It's not Amazigh or Berber or whatever. Bro, you need to support Christians. I support Christians. Like, I've always said that the people who obsess over how Israel treats Christians, which is reasonably well compared to other places in the Middle East or North Africa, even if it's not perfect, and ignore what Christians go through in North Africa and the Middle East, are hypocrites, There is a huge amount of persecution of Christians going on in the Arab world, in the Muslim world, and it's terrible, and it's ignored, and I support them 100%. But there's not much I can do about it, Like what can I do about the matter? And there's also not much Israel can do. And also remember, Israel is trying to get better relations with a lot of these countries. So its hands are tied. Like Israel, it's not like Israel can, go and say, hey, Egypt, we're really sad about what's going on with the persecution of Christians in your country. There was recently a Coptic girl who was kidnapped in Egypt and brought back to her home recently. And that kidnapping Coptic girls, it's happened a lot there. But if Israel does that to Egypt, it's going to be in trouble with Egypt. And Israel needs a good relationship with Egypt. So it can't do that. It can't point out to the fact that there's persecutions of Copts in Egypt. Just can't. Someone else needs to do that. The US, Europe, other people need to get on that, need to take the responsibility for that. Israel doesn't have the capital, the political capital, or the ability to do anything about that. Did you see Ahmed Sameh, the Egyptian engineer in Dammam, Saudi Arabia, who claimed that Judaism is not a heavenly religion? No, I didn't see. I don't know. I'm a Christian and I support Israel 100%. Also, the majority of Europeans supports Israel. It's the Muslim immigrants who protest, not Europeans, except leftists. No, but there are a lot of Europeans who also join in. It's true that the influx of large amounts of Islamists into Europe, and I use that word Islamists, not just Muslims, but like literally extreme people, Muslim Brotherhood supporters, the Muslim Brotherhood being outlawed in UAE, now in Jordan. There's that famous video from 2017 of Mohammed bin Zayed from Abu Dhabi saying that you don't know what you've brought into Europe and you're going to pay a price. You should listen to us. We know what you're going to deal with. So they know the threat. The moderate Muslim, successful Muslim countries, they know the threat, and Europe doesn't. So you have Islamists in Europe, and they're definitely the ones who lead it violently. These are the ones who really bring in the energy and the people to the streets, and sometimes the violence and the intimidation factor into these protests. But there's a lot of Europeans as well who join in, leftists who are very idealistic, people like the Irish who are, just going crazy in the pro-Palestine thing here and 100% on the side of Hamas almost. So there's a big leftist European factor. There's a lot of people in Europe who don't like Israel, who think Israel is to blame, who, they think it's the occupation and this, let's not underestimate the European countries, the amount of people who were really against Israel and 100% in the Palestinian camp. All right? It would be a mistake to say that it's just the recent Muslim migrants who are doing this. That's not true. Looks, my Jewish friend, how so kindness and lovely with me, Sabel. Yeah, well, we love you and I'm wishing you the best. I don't know how it's like being a Christian in Algeria, but it's probably not easy. Theodore says, I know, and it's sad. Fada says, don't forget what they did to the Jews in Alexandria. Are you talking about the 1945 riots? Leonard Ashton, I'm Christian. There is an organization, International Christian Concern, that follows many of these areas of persecution. However, I would agree that many in the West don't want to know about it. No, they don't. They absolutely don't want to know about it. I don't know. Why don't you guys tell me? The funniest thing though is it's one thing if people don't know about who are not active in anything, but some of these big Christian activists, people like Candace Owens, people like Tucker Carlson, they're all about protecting Christians. They want to protect Christians. And then they obsess over Israel. It's just funny. It's crazy. It's there are some kids in Jerusalem who spat on Christians. There are some people who, they defiled the church once. There's some bad stuff have happened for sure. And I condemn that 100%. But that's nothing compared to, I don't know, what was it? 70 Christians were beheaded in Congo, In Nigeria, every day they're killing Christians, the Boko Haram there. All the Christian communities just disappearing across the region, and I mentioned in Egypt where they abducted the Coptic girl, and that kind of thing happens. There's so much worse happening, and for some reason it just doesn't fit the agenda to talk about it. I don't know, it just doesn't fit the agenda. Not to mention persecution of Christians in the Palestinian areas. That's no, because the Palestinians are the oppressed by Israel. So if you would point out that they're doing their own oppression to a certain degree, that's a no. You can't go there. And me as an Israeli, I'm not allowed to talk about it, because I talk about it, it's like I have an agenda, right? I want to demonize the Palestinians, supposedly. I want to make them illegitimate so I can do this. So I don't have any leverage to talk about that. Again, These are things that other people need to talk about. Otherwise, it's just going to be ignored. I can't mention that. Like, if I mention it, it's going to fall on deaf ears, except from the pro-Israel community. But if someone else mentions it, maybe something will be done. What do you think about the Sumud convoy coming from Tunisia to Gaza? Where there were some videos now, like in Egypt, where they stopped people from going to the border. So I don't think anyone's going to get into Gaza through Egypt. Replay says, Halek, how are you? I'm good. Albert Rizzo, I have Christian background, but I mainly focus on behavior, facts, Torah, and not words. I love Israel. Okay, thank you. Forrest Dweller, do you think it's sensible to get triumphant regarding Israel's success in the strike? I've seen many pro-Israel voices gloating over these strikes, and it seems like dangerous, reckless overconfidence. I agree. I agree that gloating is not smart. I don't know. I mean, well, again, it depends on what your style is, right? Some people, they have a more comic kind of style of addressing things, with like the beepers in Lebanon and all that. I'm not one for gloating on military achievements. I think you can back them and say that it was a correct and it was a success. But do it carefully, like in a sense that, first of all, we don't know what Pandora's box been opened. And also, war is war, and war is not good. And I don't know how much you should celebrate war. But, so yeah, I mean, yeah, I think boasting is not the right attitude. I think the right attitude is to point out that Iran made Israel an enemy, not the other way around. Iran turned Israel from a friend into an enemy through its ideology and has been an aggressor against Israel for decades. And this is a justifiable response. I think that attitude is correct. And that, as long as the Islamic Republic is there and are pursuing a nuclear weapon and are arming proxies in the region, then there's going to be conflict. That's unavoidable. The put my head in the sand and pretend that Iran is this benevolent force is a mistake. I see the Dave Smith types in the US saying that, like, oh, it's all us, and Iran doesn't have its own agenda and its own fundamentalism. It's all, we force them into it. That's stupid. So it's about being honest about the reality in a level-headed manner, not in a boasting manner, for sure. Gigi loves Hong Kong. I love Israel and its people. Many Filipinos love Israel and became a part of their life because of Christianity. That's cool. I suggest you check out the video I made in Philippines. Bro, baklava is from North Africa. We have it. Okay, well, there you go. It's like couscous. Couscous is an Amazigh dish, right? This is ridiculous. Why don't you have a discussion of the persecution of different minority groups in the East Bank and in Gaza? Doesn't it make sense to highlight what all others ignore? That is ridiculous. Why don't you have a discussion? Well, we were having that discussion, right? The persecution in the Palestinian areas, right? I don't know. How many Christian in Israel's government? We don't have any Christians in Israel's government. But, wait, did we have once a Christian in the... No. Look, the Christians, they vote for the Arab parties usually. And I think they had representative, I think the one Christian, first of all, Christians are only like 1 or 2% of Israeli population. So they're a very small percent of the Israeli population. There is a prominent Christian I don't think he was elected in the end because their party didn't pass the threshold, politician, which is, what was the name of that guy again? Sami Abu Shkheda. He's a Christian from Jaffa, and he's part of the Balad party, which is the most anti-Israel Arab party, right? That was almost outlawed. It's basically a party that denies Israel's existence and says that Israel needs to be dismantled. And he, as a Christian, because he's like he's from that like communist wing of the Christian Arabs, was one of their representatives. So there was no way he was ever gonna be. I mean, even if when the party passed the threshold, and they did in the past, as part of like a combination with another Arab party, right? Then he was in Knesset, so he was in the parliament. He was a parliament member, but not a coalition member, because nobody would take him in the coalition because he rejects his own country, yeah? Like the same way the Arab parties never, until recently when there was like that groundbreaking, taking the Ram, the Muslim movement party, into the coalition. Arab parties have never been part of the coalition because, these are what we call the anti-Zionist parties, the parties that don't recognize Israel as Jewish identity, want to transform it into like a state of all its citizens, quote, which is just a way of dismantling the nation state and turning it into an Arab state eventually. Yeah. Alexander Abramovich going to the beach. Well, thank you for tuning in. Am I banned here? No. Who said so? Thank you for joining, Alexander. Really bad move from Israel. Okay, well, that's your opinion. We'll see how it plays out. I don't know how it will play out 100%, but we'll see. But I think Iran really forced Israel into this move over the years with everything that it's done. Bro, as a Christian Algerian, can I live in Israel with no problems? It's not that easy. Time will tell, yeah. One Strong, do you really believe you shouldn't discuss Christian, Druze, Armenian, Maronite persecution in the East Bank and Gaza simply because you aren't Christian? No, I've talked about it. Like, I'm willing to say, yeah, to me, it's obvious that the persecution of Christians in Muslim and Arab countries, which they downplay, yeah, they'll pretend everyone's Arab and everyone lives in perfect harmony, is connected to the aggression towards Israel, of course. This is the answer to One Strong, in the sense that their opposition to Israel is that Israel is the Jews, who are supposed to be their subjects, dhimis, living under them, are self-determined in their own country. They are opposed to that. It's because the Jews are supposed to be in a form of submission to their sovereignty. That attitude also has its effect on Christians living in Muslim Arab countries, right? Now in modern states, you can't, like in a modern day, put someone in that dhimmi status, but you can, for example, like they do in Egypt, you can not give them lands to build new churches or permits to build churches. You can marginalize Christian groups in a lot of these countries in various ways, as many people who have escaped from those countries will tell you. So, of course, I would say there's a link between those things. There's a reason why very often Christian minorities in Muslim countries are much more supportive of Israel. Not always. Sometimes they go full on board with the Arabization and Arab nationalism and become big nationalists and hate Israel and so forth. But Christians very often, like when I was in Indonesia, where most of the Christians love Israel, have no problem with Israel. Some of the Coptics, they can't say it when they're there, but ones who are abroad are much less anti-Israel. Some of them you guys should read Raymond Ibrahim, who's the Coptic Christian guy who grew up in the United States, and he's a big researcher into persecution of Christians in Muslim Arab countries. He wrote a bunch of successful books like Crucified Again, Sword and the Scimitar, which are all about the persecution of Christians in Muslim Arab countries. He's the one you need to read, not me. But yeah, of course, I'll call it out. But, it's going to fall on deaf ears. People just say, oh, you're just a brainwashed Israeli, whatever, and you're just trying to delegitimize these countries and delegitimize the Palestinians, and you're the real oppressor. That's what they'll tell me. But I'll speak about it. I just don't think Israelis have much ability to influence this thing. It needs to come from other places to have the impact, Forest Dweller, what's the general Israeli view on Russia and Ukraine? My impression is that Israel hasn't supported Ukraine and takes a very appeasing tone towards Russia, which makes Israel look pretty hypocritical. I agree. I think most Israelis support Ukraine. It's pretty obvious. Also, Russia is not exactly a great friend to Israel. They have their military bases in Syria. They had. They kind of side with Iran. So our allies are America. But we have a delicate dance that we've danced with Russia. There's also a lot of Jews in Russia and former Soviet Union and things like that. Um, Russia is an important country. We want to have good relations with them. So for that reason, I think Israel was dancing a delicate dance. I can also say that when Trump wanted to pass, right, there was some resolution recently where Israel didn't vote with Ukraine, I think in the UN, and part of that was because of pressure from Trump, that we wanted to appease the U.S., who were taking a more hardline stance against Ukraine recently to end the war there. So we have our realities that we deal with. Like, another sad reality where Israel, I think, is being hypocritical is with Armenia. And I talked about this when I visited Armenia and Azerbaijan, that Israel doesn't recognize the Armenian genocide. It doesn't deny it, like Turkey does, right? It officially denies it, but it doesn't recognize it because of the sensitivities with Turkey. Earlier it was with Turkey, now Turkey are basically our enemies, so I think F them. But now it's with Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is an ally of Israel. They supply us oil. We have big security ties with them. They're a very important country for us in the region, and we can't upset them. So we have to deny the Armenian genocide, or not recognize it, because it's politically expedient not to recognize it. But it's wrong. Of course it's wrong. They went through genocide. The Nazis definitely took inspiration from the Armenian genocide. So we're linked in that sense, and yet we don't come out and officially recognize it just because of political realities. Same with Ukraine. I think, there were some people who wanted to, in the opposition in particular, like Yair Lapid, who were more voicing voicing things with regarding Ukraine. Israel recognized the Armenian genocide several times. No, not officially. No, Netanyahu. So yeah, you're right. Israel did say, it's obvious that most average Israelis know about it, and it's obvious that the government, people in government they know it happened, and nobody's denying it in Israel. But there's never been a proper recognition. If you look online at the base of countries that have officially recognized it, Israel is not there. Okay? So I'm just saying that it's an example that there's ideology and there's political reality. So in the case of Armenia, Israel is taking the side, not just in the recognizing the genocide. Israel supplied weapons to Azerbaijan that they used against Armenia. Does that mean because Israel is so 100% on the side of Azerbaijan in that conflict? A conflict where also Turkey is on the side of Azerbaijan, and Turkey's been very nasty to us. I'm saying not necessarily. I'm saying real politics. So same thing, Russia, Ukraine, real politics. Most people are on the side of Ukraine and Israel. We support Ukraine, but there's real politics. Russia's a very important country. We can't really afford to be in a full-blown conflict opposition with Russia and Israel. We just can't. And that's the thing. So I would say that's the issue. Armenia is a friend of Iran. That's another issue as well. Okay, yeah, poll. I mean, we got to 209 votes. We're still at a 50-50. Pretty crazy, huh? Okay, let's get back to Iran, really. Let's get back to talking about Iran. I'm getting a bit tired, yeah, but this is a long live stream. Maybe I need another coffee. I thought we would have more people. But, and you guys still haven't gotten any commercials, huh? No commercials have popped up, as you say. Yeah, Philippines was the only country to vote in favor of Israel back in the day. You got one ad. Oh, okay, so the ads are rolling. So it's rolling for some people, not for others. That's something that happens sometimes. Okay, cool. Cool. Okay, so you know what? Let's just go to I've been talking. I haven't been looking. Let's go into there's an updates, latest stuff. Iran says the vengeance will come soon. They say they haven't fired rockets at Israel, even though there are reports here that Israel has shot down. Iran is saying at least 78 people are killed, over 300 injured in the attacks. Question is, probably some of them would be civilians. Unfortunately, we'll have to wait and see on that. Yeah, 78 dead. Iran is reporting that now. That's what's come out. Trump says, I gave Iran 60 days ultimatum. Maybe now they have a second chance. Israeli officials are saying the attacks in Iran were more successful than we anticipated. So it's like an over success. There's no doubt that from a military perspective, this is a big Israeli success. Again, as the person said in the comments, I'm not trying to boast here. That's just like a fact of the military aspect. What will come though, we'll have to wait and see. Reports, more attacks in Kermanshah, Hamadan, and Tabriz in western Iran. Again, these attacks are after the initial surprise attack. So obviously their defense capabilities are really down. Apparently Israel destroyed the airport in Tabriz. Prime Minister Netanyahu to talk with Trump now. There's reports that Israel is exiting the nuclear negotiations, which is a big story, of course. Now, obviously, those nuclear negotiations weren't going very well and never really went well in the last decades, to be honest. But that could be a big story if, like, Iran doesn't even pretend to negotiate anymore, just exit the negotiation, you know? We're seeing restrictions on internet in Iran following the Israeli attack. Macron has come onto Israel's side, said Israel has the right to defend itself. That's surprising after all the attacks Macron did against Israel regarding the situation in Gaza. So there's that. Let's look at some headlines. BBC, what are they saying? BBC, I hate BBC obviously, but you know, let's see what their headline. BBC headline, Trump warns Iran of more brutal Israeli attacks after major strikes on nuclear military sites. CNN headline, what do they say? Israel strikes Iran's nuclear and military sites in unprecedented attack. Al Jazeera, what do they say? Headline. What? You know, I think there's a problem of reaching Al Jazeera in Israel because, I think Al Jazeera is, of course, a Muslim Brotherhood front from Qatar, but I still like to see what they're saying just to, site can't be reached. Okay. Let's try Al Arabiya for a Saudi perspective. Breaking news from around the world. This is Al Arabiya English, right? There's a difference between English and Arabic. They say different things. So that's worth noting. Blasts heard as Israel launches fresh attacks on Iran. So they're updated, right? Because this is the new attacks. Saudi Arabia says Israel attacks on Iran, clear violation of international law. Trump urges Iran to make nuclear deal or face even more brutal attacks. Iran says Israel's attack declaration of war. This is Al Arabiya. I want to see Al Arabiya Arabic, what they say, because it might not be the same. Let's go into Al Arabiya Arabic. I love trying to read Arabic headlines, but we don't have time for that because, you know, I read some Arabic. So let's just say, put on the English Translate here with Google Translate. Same thing, new explosions heard in northwestern Iran. The Israeli army releases a video explaining the targeting of Natanz. Iranian president, our strong response will make Israel regret it. I think it's kind of like the same here. Okay. Let's go into Ynet, which is my favorite Hebrew website, which says right now, like the headline now, the attacks in Iran continue. IDF has destroyed the airport in Tabriz. And then here there's like a graph with like the opening strike on Iran, it says in Hebrew, Makat Pticha al Iran. And then a bunch of like experts talking. Oh, wait, what's going on here? It's froze. Why? We're good? Is it okay now? Can you see me? Now you're back, okay. Where was I when you lost me? Al Jazeera top headline currently is Iran vows powerful response to Israel as it carries out new strikes. Okay, okay. Friday the 13th, we played with a donation. Thank you. Thank you very much for that in Israeli shekels. And yeah, if you guys want me to give you more of these constant updates, it helps if you send a donation because, you know, it gives more of an incentive to be on air all day to talk about it. But we've lost a lot of the viewers. We had only 1,000 views all told with 42 online right now. And that's actually surprising because usually when there's a big event, you get more than that. Not that 1,000 is bad, but yeah. You were checking the news. Yeah, I was checking the news. Checking the Israeli sites as well. Okay, strong condemnation from Russia. This is the responses from around the world, but this is in Hebrew. So instead of like doing on the fly translation for you guys, let's see if the if the English website Times of Israel has that same piece of Trump administration distances U.S. from Israel's attack on Iranian nuclear program. A great report on X earlier that Jordan took care of a couple of drones in their airspace. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, wait. Let's do a like here to replay on that donation. I don't know if, did that go? I did a like, okay. Yeah. Is Iran waiting for night to respond? I don't think it has to do with that. I just think they're trying to suss out, like, first of all, where they stand internationally after this attack and what they can do, you know, and what they should do, which makes sense. I mean, it takes time. Like, this was a big strike. They lost major people, and now they need to figure out what they want to do, right? Al Jazeera Arabic headline: Israel attacks Iran. Extensive bombing targets vital Iranian sites, and Tehran vows to respond. They are responding, but very weak so far. No, but that's like an immediate response, and then there's a long-term response. By the way, what Israel is doing now is part of the long-term response. You may remember in April last year when Iran attacked Israel, with, you know, the first time that Iran directly attacked Israel, as they had threatened to do, Israel did like a minor-ish response, and then backed off, but said this isn't the end. So this is the response for that. So the Iranian response for this could come next year or more. Iranians are very, very patient people. They can respond in 5 years also. Like, they'll take their time, potentially. So they need to figure out what's going on. They need to reorganize their chain of command. They need to decide what they want to do. And then maybe later they'll strike. I don't think like the other than like a superficial, oh, we did something back, the big response is going to come now. It's going to come later down the road. It could also be like an attack on some Israeli consulate somewhere around the globe. Like, it can be, there's a lot of things they can do. Well, the poll is 52% in favor, 220 votes. Again, the poll doesn't mean anything. The only thing the poll shows is who the audience is, right? If the audience is like, I don't know. Even though, like, yeah, of course, most of my loyal audience is more pro-Israel, which is understandable. And most of my anti-Israel audience are people who kind of like pop in and out more, you know, because they just saw my video of the anti-Zionists of Netolei Kalta. They just saw, like, my videos that have the most views are videos that attract people who hate Israel, which is my Egypt video and my Netolei Kalta anti-Zionist Jews video. So they will like pop in just to insult me and then leave. Like, they won't be long-term viewers usually, those type of people. So that's kind of like, so those might be some of the people who are in here. But generally, like, my people who watch me long term, because I'm more pro-Israel, obviously, then those people will, the long-term viewers who like me and my opinions more, will probably say that it was correct to attack Iran. Because I think the general assessment in Israel is that it was correct to attack Iran because, you know, Iran is our arch enemy, and they've been attacking us for years through their proxies. So this is the response, you know, it's like a legitimate response. And the attack was successful. If the attack had been a failure, if the planes had been shot down, and this may be a different story, but, you know. Replay says, I hope the Iranian people will liberate themselves from this weak, crippled, fanatic regime. Yeah, don't we all? Don't we all? There was a report earlier on X that Jordan took care of a couple of drones in their airspace. Yeah, I mean, that's what happened last time also, right? That is what also happened last time. So yeah, sharp condemnation from Russia versus, on the other hand, backing from Germany and France. The responses around the world. This is like a piece I see in the Israeli news. Yeah, so we have here Chancellor Germany. He says, the Prime Minister Netanyahu told me this morning about the operation. I invited the cabinet, the security cabinet of the federal government of Germany for a discussion. Yeah, I mean, a French foreign minister backed Israel here. He said, we've said many times our deep concerns about the Iranian nuclear program. We enforce Israel's right to defend itself from every attack. France is following closely. Kremlin is concerned, but then at the beginning they published their concern and then a sharp condemnation. We express deep concern from the dangerous escalation of, the tensions in the Middle East. We strongly condemn the Israeli military operation, which is in violation of the, Declaration of Nations and the international law. I'm just translating here from Hebrew. That's why I'm taking my time a little bit. So yeah, a very strong condemnation from Russia. That's worth keeping an eye on. Is it possible for Iran to have a peaceful nuclear program? Is it possible for Iran to build nuclear reactors without the possibility of building a bomb? I don't know how that works exactly, in the sense of if you have a nuclear program for civilian purposes, how easy it is to then divert it to military purposes. But we do know for sure that the type of things they were doing with their nuclear program, like the way they were enriching the uranium and this and the long-range ballistic missiles, is that nobody actually thinks that what the Iranians were doing was a civilian program. Yeah, everyone knows it's a nuclear program. So it's kind of an irrelevant question. They never had that goal. Their goal was to build a nuclear, military purposes program, Guys, don't fight in the chat, please, okay? I think Alexander was talking with Anna in, Montenegrin, because they're both from the same place. So let them talk, it's fine. But it is preferable to speak in English so everyone can understand. In any case, I think I'm gonna hop off soon because I realized my limit for live streaming is about 2 hours, and then I start to get tired. You can probably see it in my eyes. It can get a little bit tiring. I'm also a little bit hungry. I need to eat something. But I'll probably do another one either later today or tomorrow. I'll just keep tabs on stuff. So yeah, that's all I can say about that. I mean, we can wrap up the poll, end the poll. We got 220 votes. Which is, we end the poll, right? One strong, thank you again. You're wonderful to listen to. Saber says, yes, very cool. So yeah, we got 51% yes, 48% no. If it was a correct move to attack Iran. Which is, again, that doesn't mean anything. It just means who's watching me, right? But that's also interesting that we have, either Israelis who are against, or maybe people who are just in generally like anti-Israel and don't think Israel is the aggressor for some reason, then those we have like a pretty even split here. Do live stream as soon as it happens, then you might get more viewers. Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Yeah, not enough people in the chat. I mean, also all the American viewers aren't here, right? Because it's early morning there. How'd you say, I wish you have a good day? Well, on Friday at 4 in the evening, you don't say, I wish you have a good day. You say, Shabbat Shalom, which is written like this. Oops. Shabbat Shalom. Or in English, you write Shabbat Shalom. Oops. Bong, James Bong says Shalom and Boker Tov. It's not Boker here though in Israel. It's actually afternoon. Extra PayPal for you today, my friend. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you very much. Really, really appreciate it. It's very expensive living in Israel. And I'm not working. I'm working freelance with I-24, so I'm getting a little bit of income from them, some income from the YouTube and from the donations. And I have like other projects I'm working on, like my book and my lectures, which hopefully will like supplement my income as well. But it's a struggle. So anyone who supports, I really appreciate it. It gives me motivation to keep going. But anyway, also those who didn't donate, thank you for tuning in and contributing to the discussion. West Kentucky, Bong, James Bong. Which lectures? I'm working on lectures to do here in Israel, like not a lecture, like a outside, yeah, a lecture. A lecture about my visits to places that most Israelis don't know about, like Egypt, Saudi, like what's it like to be there, what I learned, what we as Israelis should know about these places and their attitude towards Israel, which is kind of all subjects of the book as well. So I'm gonna do like building a lecture and hoping to, you know, oh my God, I did get tired, right? We have a good lecture culture in Israel. People like to go to lecturers, martzim, and hear like on interesting topics, and they pay for it. So, you know, I have a very unique experience. I want to share it through a lecture, and also make some money from it, you know? Alec, if I was you, I move away from Israel. I don't think that's happening. Bad stuff awaits. I don't know. You are tired, get some rest, buddy. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you for joining in, and thank you for those who contributed, for those who donated, which includes Meadow Front Row. Thank you very much for that. And yeah, see you guys next time. I'd be in Israel now. Oh, yeah. So keep your eyes open on my channel. If you get a ring, put up the alert bell, and I might do another live stream this evening, especially if there's like big news. I don't keep Shabbat, so I can do it even after Shabbat, and there's like not much going on here on Shabbat. I'm at my parents, with my dad here. My mom's abroad. So yeah, might be another more updates in the coming days if things happen, so you can get the updates with me. See you guys.